The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Prosecutor. Because of the line of questioning at the preliminary hearing, agents believed they had missed a vital piece of evidence during the search of the cabin where Hart was captured. The cabin was searched again and several more items were found. Among these were a toy corncob pipe and a small blue mirror found in a shaving kit on the refrigerator. These items were identified as belonging to a Camp Scott counselor. More importantly, they placed Gene Hart at Camp Scott at or near the time of the murders.
Investigators returned to the cabin and found some item allegedly linked to the girls in the cabin in plain view, which was, if in fact that happened as reported, was so absurd that a lot of people just immediately saw or believed that this was a trumped-up deal.
What was newsworthy and caught the attention of the media were those people who complained about racial injustice or trumped-up charges or trumped-up evidence. And then, of course, that always makes good news. That just makes good news.
The trial day had finally arrived. Many of the people in the front of the courtroom had been among the 400 Locust Grove and Pryor residents who had attended a benefit chicken dinner which helped raise money for Gene Hart's defense fund.
On the one particular day up there, there were 4 medicine men in the Mays County Courthouse at the same time. And that was to influence the outcome of that trial that was going on there.
We were the enemy. When we walked in the courtroom, we seemed to be the guilty party. And everyone was rallying around their hero. And it was a shock.
A friend of ours who said, after reading an article about Hart and talking about his athletic ability, that he expected him to be drafted by the Dallas Cowboys after this. It was strange. It was very strange. It was strange to be up there and go in a restaurant to eat and see a jar with to donate money for Hart's defense.
I didn't really feel that we were amongst a lot of friends.
Likewise, you don't have the right to say, hey, wait, things aren't right here. We want to move the trial to a more neutral location. Change of venue is not within the rights of the prosecution and the victim. It's only a right that the accused has.
One of the most hurtful things to me was when the person accused in her child's death, Gene Leroy Hart, held an interview, a press conference, and he announced it a couple of days ahead, and the news media submitted questions. He would only review those questions and pick ones that he wanted to answer. And on the day of the interview, 2 stations in Tulsa broke into their regularly scheduled programs to air that interview.
I am not a hero. I have no desire to be a hero. But maybe I represent the fears and doubts that many people have about any system that has the means and the power to overwhelm each of us, each and every one of us.
During the next few days, the prosecutor presented his case. The hair from the tape used to bind Denise Milner matched Hart's hair. Dr. John McLeod, America's foremost authority on male fertility, testified Hart's sperm matched that found in the victims. The pictures of the women found in the cave linked him to the tape and the newspaper found in the flashlight left at the crime scene. And finally, the mirror and the corncob pipe found where Hart was captured were identified as belonging to a camper who was at Camp Scott on the night of the murders. Rules of evidence prohibited the prosecution from introducing the similarities between the rapes of the pregnant women and the murders. This type of evidence would be too prejudicial to the defendant.
I recall an incident where on a blackboard, if my memory serves me correctly, that had been covered with a paper. I was going to use the blackboard in the questioning of a witness, and the jury was in the box, and I walked over to the blackboard to raise this paper to have the witness draw on the blackboard, and somebody had written across the blackboard, "framed," apparently anticipating that I might be using that blackboard. I can't recall exactly what I said. I remember erasing the word "framed" that was on there, but I'm sure it was not done in an earlier trial. I rather suspect that it was during the same trial.
The defense called a chemist who said that the hair comparisons made by the OSBI were certainly similar, but that was all. He drew the analogy that my thumbs look alike, but they aren't. A woman and her son attempted to implicate another man as the probable murderer. Agents had discredited their story weeks before, and scientific tests had excluded the man as a suspect. An ex-jailer, who the sheriff had fired in 1973, testified that he remembered seeing the photographs found in cave number 1 in the sheriff's desk after Gene Hart escaped. The sheriff denied the charge and produced the property receipt signed by Hart that showed the pictures were not in his possession when he was in jail. The defense rested without Gene Hart taking the stand.
Does a jury have the courage to do, what is right? That is the big question, because I felt the evidence was clear. I feel it spoke for itself about Gene Hart's guilt.
The newspaper accounts at the time and listening to people in the community discuss the issue, there was certainly a belief that some evidence had been planted. In fact, there was real concern, I think, among a lot of people, myself included, that if Hart were guilty, the fact that the apparent fact that the sheriff and the investigators tried to overplay it by planting of evidence probably persuaded the jury to believe that they didn't have a very good case.
It was 11 o'clock at night when Crying Wolf met his co-conspirator, the sheriff of Mays County, in the courtyard of the old courthouse. The sheriff was stung by the accusations that he was railroading Hart and had planted the pictures of the women found in the cave. Frustrated and angered, he asked Crying Wolf if there was an Indian way to determine who was lying. The medicine man's help came in the form of the old one, the most powerful of all medicine tobacco. To Crying Wolf, the issue was simple.
Gene Hart stood on the blood of those little girls and told God Almighty that he didn't do this. And there was other people, if you will, on the other side of the fence, standing on that same blood. And said, Gene Hart did this. And to use that old tobacco to bring this out was the ultimate purpose.
The use of the old tobacco conformed to the significance of the number 4 in Cherokee culture. As Crying Wolf prayed, the sheriff, still weakened from a heart attack, placed 4 equal portions of the old one at the 4 corners of the courthouse. The number 4 was to be significant in Gene Hart's life. As the 4th portion was deposited, Crying Wolf prayed for the ultimate truth. But what was the ultimate truth?
The ultimate truth is life and death. And this is the ultimate test of the ancient one, to determine if Gene Hart or another person would die as a result of this terrible thing that was done.
When the jury went out on an afternoon, we really had not anticipated it to end right then, so we were not really prepared to spend the night, but we did, and didn't go back home. Early the next morning, we went over to the courthouse, and I sat in the courthouse by myself in the courtroom for quite a while thinking about it, and was actually sitting there when they said the verdict is in.
The courtroom was packed. There was standing room only. I finally edged my way in near the side of the jury box, between the jury box and the judge's bench, waiting for the announcement of the verdict.
And it just took a second for them to read it.
Total hush over the courtroom as the verdict was announced.
We heard a noise when we heard the verdict. Because of their jubilation, we looked over there and they were celebrating.
I was parking the car, and Georgianne and Mike went ahead. And by the time I walked in the courthouse and got to the bottom of the stairs to the second floor, people were running down the stairs shouting and screaming.
And then it was pandemonium in the courtroom. People were hugging Hart's lawyers. They were hugging Gene Hart. I saw people with the media hugging Gene Hart and Gene Hart's family. Yelling and laughing in there. It was mass hysteria on that side of the courtroom.
Said the verdict was in. Of course, I can't remember who I asked because they ran by, and they said he's not guilty.
On the other side of the courtroom, where the families of the victims sat, they just bowed their heads, and you could tell they were in shock. They just couldn't believe that it happened.
Second to the shock of learning about her death. I think I could compare it to that.
Charlie stand. It was just unbelievable.
And the judge tried to restore some semblance of order there in the courtroom as the deputies walked over and took control of Gene Hart.
Well, we all went to the district attorney's office, and in there everyone was just crying. It was just very emotional, very tearful. Everybody was upset.
We did step in the judge's chambers momentarily, who just said to us that in our system of justice, even people who are guilty sometimes are free.
We were escorted out of the courthouse to our car, which we had been done several times during the trial.
It was kind of like just being thrown out of town, and that was not their intent, but they were concerned about us.
And we left the courthouse and walked over to the sheriff's office, and I asked them to release to me everything of Lori's that they had. And we took all of those things and put them in our car and went by the cemetery as we got back into Tulsa and went home. It was the first time I had looked at a lot of the things that they had held as evidence. And it was in the overall picture of things that are bad and worse, that was probably one of the hardest things that I ever did, was looking at the shirt that Lori had on, the shoes that were by her bed, her sleeping bag that my mom and dad had given her. It was real hard, and it was 2 years after Lori died when the trial was over. And I know that we were in worse shape then than we were that first day.
After his acquittal, Gene Hart was returned to prison to complete his sentences for rape and burglary. A few weeks later, after an intense hour of lifting weights, he began his evening run in the prison exercise yard. The June sun had disappeared behind the prison wall, leaving a chilling shadow and the rumble of distant thunder. June had always been an eventful month in his tumultuous life. This June day was an anniversary of sorts for Gene Hart. It was 13 years ago today, almost to the hour, that he had begun his criminal life with the abduction and the rape of 2 Tulsa women. It had also been an early June evening when he burglarized the 4 Tulsa homes. And of course, 3 children had been murdered on an evening in early June. It was theorized that Oklahoma's chaotic spring storms and accompanying changes in barometric pressure may have contributed to this June behavior. But, at best, it was just a theory. And besides, it was much easier to dismiss the June behavior as coincidence. Shortly before 7 o'clock on the last June evening of his life, Jean Leroy Hart collapsed and died.
I'm sure that a lot of people will argue that justice was finally done, and other people are going to argue that he never should have been there, and that possibly by being put in prison, this caused his death from whatever source.
In the hills of northeastern Oklahoma, a medicine man not only found significance in the month that Hart died, but also in the day he died. It was June the 4th.
Did we abuse an innocent man? Or did we turn an innocent or guilty man loose? But what is so important is the fact that we take this time to reflect and say, how can we make things better? So if we don't change, if we don't constantly prove to make our system better, then there's going to be lots and lots of Girl Scout murders out there.
It just changed everything. And it took a long time to ever be able to go back out and not be afraid of being in the woods or sleeping outside at night. And I can't imagine how the parents had to deal with, losing their kids. But I know how I felt and what I felt I lost. It's my innocence.
I just don't know how people deal with those kinds of griefs and how best to do it. But I know that everybody, and especially in the Indian community, was equally appalled at what happened and felt very strongly about it.
I just tried to face it all a little bit at a time. I was just trying to think about it a little bit at a time. And I went back to the school where she had, and worked another year for the school where she attended, hoping that it would help me to adjust. And probably one of the things that helped me most, other than my belief in God, is that the children that were her friends, they always took time to come and see me.
There is never any time that I don't go out hiking or camping or anything that I don't smell Camp Scott, because it was like a second home to me. And when I smell the trees or a creek, I always go back, no matter what.
There is a place in all of us reserved for the uncluttered simplicity of good thought. It is a harbor for sweet memories and special moments. It is a refuge where things are remembered through the innocence of a child's eyes. And now for many of us, this place has more precious treasure. 3 little girls who laugh and play through an eternity of swimming hole days and lightning bug nights.
Okay, so that documentary, obviously, it sounds like it was from like the 80s or 90s there. And I'm not sure if the guy, I mean, it should have been a guy narrating that episode, especially an older man. It just sounds a little creepy to me. But especially the whole lightning bug nights, type of thing. It was like, maybe they should have thought of something a little different. As a kid, I was you start off in the Girl Scouts as a brownie, and then you work your way up to a Girl Scout in the green outfit. I didn't make it past the brownie phase. I was just what it was in the 80s. What I got out of it, I guess I probably was a feminist, and even back then, it didn't click with me what they were trying to teach. It was very domesticated, and women have their place, and I was just 5 years old. Like, that's some bull crap and everything. But, Girl Scouts and things like that, maybe they've changed their thing to where they're empowering women to be smart and everything like that. Because in the 80s, I mean, it was still very much, a male-dominated world. And the Boy Scouts were like, teaching you how to kayak and how to make, pointy sticks and, all that kind of stuff. And with the Girl Scouts, it was like how to knit and how to bake a cake and, how to clean house and how to stitch up a person's clothes. And I was just like, or how to pet a kitty or take care of kitty cats and dogs and everything like that. And Boy Scouts were like how to shoot a bow and arrow and, how to make fire. And I was like, dude, I want to learn how to like make pointy sticks and shoot bows and arrows and make fire and that kind of stuff. I was a bit of a tomboy. And I'm like, I don't want to sit here and make a cake. I don't want to sit here and sew stuff or crochet and everything because I sucked at crocheting. I was like, dude, I want to like shoot some bow and arrows and shoot a gun and all this other stuff. So needless to say, my whole was very brief. in the Girl Scouts. I think I maybe got one badge, and I think it was probably like everybody got the badge because I don't think I ever made it to creating anything. I just also remember I went on there was a park that was a outdoor gym. I don't even know if it's still there. And they brought like a little mini grill, and it was our first time making s'mores. Totally loved that. So maybe that was the brownie badge I got for making a s'more. I don't know. And the second time I had like a s'more type of situation, like a camping environment, was at KinderCare. And they brought a grill out, and we were all able to, roast marshmallows and make s'mores. And that was like awesome. Because s'mores, I mean, who doesn't love it's like burnt on the outside, but like gooey on the inside. Marshmallow with some chocolate and a granola bar. Or not a granola bar, but a graham cracker thing. It's some goodness right there. So, but these Girl Scouts, I mean, this happened like in the 70s, late 70s. Of course, at the time I was a toddler, not the age to go on summer camp type of situation, and everything. But, yeah, I mean, I remember the 80s, my friends going to summer camp. And of course we saw the summer camp movies like the Parent Trap, not the Camp Crystal Lake type of movies. Okay, I was like in elementary school when that movie came out, or the Freddy Krueger style stuff. It was like the, strawberry shortcake and the happy stuff and the apple dumpling gang and everything like that type of, countrified stuff where there's nothing scary that happens. That you catch lightning bugs and you roast s'mores, you have hot dogs and hamburgers, and it's like you swim in a lake, it's all good in the neighborhood. But these girls had every opportunity. They were like, came there for fun and, summer fun. I mean, why was a tent, put so far out there? And I mean, yeah, I think if they would have saw that light in the 70s, I don't think that they would have, saw that as a problem. They kind of just looked the other way at a lot of things. And I think today, in today's environment, if we were to see a light like shining in the woods, one, we'd be like, this looks suspicious. We need to not be in this area. I don't know. We might not be. I mean, there's tons of people who, get killed out in the woods from strangers who are living off grid, and they just decide, okay, I'm going to, living off grid. I've watched this on YouTube quite a bit, like tiny home living, off grid living, where they're not. There are some people who this woman, she lives by herself in a tiny home, and she lives off grid. Like, she has solar panels on top of her roof. She collects water. She has a composting potty, so that takes care of her business, 1 and 2. She has to dump number 1 out every few days. And she literally goes out and forages in the forest for like mushrooms and berries and, edible greens that are in the forest. And she shoots elk and various animals, and she cooks that and gives that to her dog as food. She eats gamey. And I mean, she's like a wild woman. And then she goes out and she takes pictures of nature scene and animals and whatnot and sells those. And that's kind of how she makes some money. But she has like, gas, hurricane lamps, which are those, you put oils in it, and then it's like what they did in pioneer days. They're called hurricane lamps. And, she has that for light, or candles, or the natural sunlight that comes in through her cabin. And because she lives up north, you can get like a foot of snow. And she shovels that out. And she does odd jobs and everything. She has a pickup truck and whatnot. And she can just haul her tiny home all over the United States. But she has a place to where she's living on someone's massive acreage. And, very much remote. So if she got sick or hurt, she has like a cell phone. And hopefully they have cell phone service. But she's pretty much reliant on herself. So if she were to just up and die, her animals would be inside the home with her, and, stuff happens. There's like the guy who went up to Alaska in a converted bus, went out in like to the open and ended up dying. And like his body was, found years later, decomposed, like petrified. And it's now a somewhat of a touristy spot. Like, people hike out there to take their picture next to the converted, school bus, and be like, hey, this is where so-and-so, the last known place of this person. And he had like a diary that he kind of kept, and like his last entry and whatnot. I don't know if he met someone murdered him or he just died all of a sudden, like something, or a bear ate him and he left his carcass behind. I don't know on that aspect of it. But there are a lot of people who live off grid. Some of them are not mentally sane people. And so, if someone is encroaching on what they believe is their territory, their thoughts are wild. They're not domesticated, and they don't think logically or succinctly because they have mentally checked out of the planet. And so their rationale is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs rationale. And so they do that. I don't know. I mean, that's a horrific thing to go through, having the, parents leaving having your child go to summer camp, where you think, okay, they're going to be gone for 2 weeks or a month, depending on what kind of summer camp it is. They're going to have a great time, come back home, and it's going to be great. Especially those poor parents who are going to surprise their daughter with a birthday party because it was her birthday, and then end up finding out their daughter has been killed. No parent wants to hear that, especially when they're sending their kid off to something, happy, like summer camp. But to find out that they were grisly assaulted and murdered. Ugh, I just don't know. They would have to seriously sedate me because I would not be in my right frame of mind, to say the least. And then if I found out who actually did it, once again, I probably would not be in my right frame of mind. I probably would pop off at the mouth and want to beat the crap out of that person, among other things, for hurting my child. Like I said, I would not be in my right frame of mind at all if someone were to hurt my child. But I think any parent would not be in their right frame of mind if that. But we kind of keep it together because we, that's kind of just what you do. And then you break down and cry in private and whatnot. But, yeah, very grisly story. And this is part 2, if you haven't really figured it out, of that story of the Girl Scout camp. And believe it or not, this would not be the last camp murder. There have been in other countries as well. I mean, believe it or not, oh my gosh, I need to tell you this. In Europe and a lot of places, and also in England, children, there are some children who go to, I don't know if it would be considered public school, because they don't really have public school, I think, in the UK. They actually have something called boarding school. That is where you send, your kid from kindergarten through, the 12th grade. September comes around, or the end of August comes around, and we get the kids go back to school for their school year, and whatnot. You drive them to school. They go to school for 8 hours, and then you pick them up, and they come home. These kids who go to boarding school from kindergarten through 12th, it's like Harry Potter. It's like Harry Potter. They, a bus picks them up, for kindergartners. They have dormitories for kindergartners, and they're gone for the entire semester. So from August to December, they're gone. Now they'll have vacation, they don't celebrate Thanksgiving over there. They might have, midterm, break, where it's the middle of October, you'll have a week off. and then they come back home for that week, and then they go back to school. And then they have like 2 weeks off for December, which is your winter break. And then they start back again in January, and they go back to boarding school, and they're in boarding school until the end of the semester, and then they come home for summer break, go back for first grade, second grade, and continuing on until their senior year, and they graduate, and that's the end. Where parents don't see their kid, the children, they write home. They do not necessarily call home. I think they call home too, but they call and they write home. So imagine your kindergartner leaving for 6 months. You only see him on like holiday breaks, and then, that kind of thing. Most Americans, we cannot even wrap our head around that situation. I mean, if you were not popular in school, if you got bullied, you have no escape. It's like you go up to the dormitory, and if you're being bullied, you have no escape. Prince Charles was a key example. He went to boarding school in Scotland. His parents sent him to boarding school in Scotland because that's where his dad went to boarding school. And if you ever watch The Crown, you'll see how horribly they treated him and bullied him. And the conditions of this boarding school was horrendous. And it was for prestigious, upper crust, rich kids, rich boys. And yeah, it was like kind of a decrepit school. It was like no heat, it leaked, and all this other stuff. And they charged a fortune for these kids to go to these elite schools. And, there was no break for him. He had no break. And then he would come home during holidays and, vacation time, spend it there, and then go straight back up to Scotland. And in fact, he was just like, my kids will never go to this school. And it was true that Harry and William did not go to that school. They went to a different type of boarding school. Like, they went to boarding school themselves, but I think that they went to boarding school in like Cambridge, if I remember correctly. It was a different type of school. So, I mean, they left, London to Cambridge, which I think it was probably like 2 hours away and whatnot. And they were there. They had a uniform and they were there. And, a dining hall and everything like that. And they went there for basically their education years, and then they graduated and went to university. I think it was like Edinburgh University in Scotland and whatnot. So, tie that one on, think about that. And there has been, cases to where kids kill other kids, like push them out of windows and, put crap in their food, to where things happen, or they get so bullied that they do stuff to themselves and whatnot. And of course, we've heard the story of the English little boys who killed that toddler, put him on the railroad tracks and beat the crap out of him and put paint on him and all that kind of stuff. We heard the confession of that many episodes before, whatnot. And then we also heard about the little girl who killed other people, including, I think, her parents. I don't know if you guys have heard the story of the little boy. He's like 11 years old. And he somehow got his parents in the shed, which is like a little teeny tiny shed, and basically butchered them because he didn't get he wanted a toy, a specific toy or electronic thing. And his parents were like, no, you're not getting it. And so he threw a fit and he killed. He like literally hacked his parents to death. And yeah, I don't know if I did an episode on that one, but that's pretty wicked. That how does a child we all, every one of us as a kid, threw a temper tantrum at one point in our lives or another. We've probably thrown several temper tantrums over not getting a toy, where we sit down in the middle of the grocery store, crying our eyes out, possibly yelling and screaming or something. All I know is that if I did that, I would have got my butt spanked. I mean, 100% I would have got my butt spanked. 100%. So, oh my gosh, my phone just every once in a while will just blow up with like these telemarketing type of situations. And so, yeah, and they're relentless. I don't know. Have you guys gotten all those telemarketer things? Like, you too. Wow. This person is like literally relentless. It's like, I make $2,000, a day. Would you like to know my secrets of making $2,000 a day? Just click yes, or just text yes back. And I mean, just scam after scam. It's like, hey, your car warranty is about to expire. We need you to act now. Da 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 da. Type in blah. And it's like, it's a complete scam. Or, hey, healthcare, the healthcare scam. It's like, get insurance for like $20 a day, blah, blah, blah. Just enter this or go to this website. It's all scams. Scam, 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 scam. In fact, it's so many scams out there right now that the place that you're supposed to be reporting that it's a scam, your state comptroller or attorney general, they're so overwhelmed that it kind of like just goes into an abyss pile. And that's why these companies continue to do the scam. They know you're on the do not call list. They just don't care. And in fact, one company I did call, there's like, yeah, we don't care that you're on the do not call list and that we could possibly get fined, because we know that each state's government is so, under, staffed, that by the time they got to us, we would have made so much money that it would not even matter. We'd be on to the next scam. And our company, we would just dissolve it and make it disappear. But we would have had all that money. And so they know, and they don't care about the do not call list. In fact, they target the do not call list even more. So if you like go to Facebook and you do these like quizzes or whatnot, they sell their information. Facebook sells your information. Your cable company, your cell phone company sells your information. Even though that they specifically say, we do not sell your information, that is a load of baloney and cheese, because they sell your information. They're just telling you that they don't. And I did an experiment with this. My cable company, I got the telephone and internet and cable package because it's like going to save me some money and everything. So I got a brand new landline telephone number through the cable company. I did not give that phone number to anyone. No one. The only person who knew that phone number was me and the cable company. Guess what? Within a week, I had people blowing up that phone, leaving voicemails saying, hey, and using my first and last name, so-and-so, we've got a great opportunity for you to blah, 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 blah. Or, hey, you just won blankety, blankety, blank. And using my first and last name, which was on my cable account, of course, because it's my cable account. Or they'll be like, hey, get insurance, do this, do that, the other, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, how did you get my information? they're like, well, didn't you request this information? No, I did not request this information. No, what happened was is that I called my cable company. I was like, you guys are selling my information when I specifically told you not to sell my information. And they're like, no, we don't sell your information. I'm like, well, how do those people get that information when I'm the only one who knows that phone number and you're the only one who knows that phone number and I haven't given it out? So it means that you had to have given it out. They're like, oh no, we have a strict, we don't sell your information policy. That's what they say on the surface, but that is not what they do behind closed doors, because I never told anyone what my phone number was. And these people all of a sudden have my information. So it is a sore spot, but everybody and their dog, your doctor, your lawyer, your tax person, your cable, everybody. The cable company is cable and the cell phone companies are especially egregious at selling your information because they get money from selling your information. So they get paid to give out your information. And they actually create email lists or lists. And they'll put down your demographic. They'll put how much money you make or what they believe how much money you make based on your neighborhood that you live in. So if you're renting in a specific neighborhood, they'll put down demographics like, this is the neighborhood that has an income level of this or that. I mean, they totally demographic you out based on, your neighborhood because you have to give them your neighborhood to get your cable hooked up. That's how the person comes out there and hooks up all your cable. They can tell if you rent or you own. They can tell you how much is on your mortgage. Okay? And then they sell that information to other people. And they're like, okay, well, this person has a projected income of $60,000 a year. So we can, send him to this tier level of products and services that, match that and everything. Or this person has an income level of $30,000 or $20,000 or even $15,000 a year. These are, either weed these out or put them in certain products. Oh, no, they will totally market to a person who makes $1,000 a year. They'll be like, okay, for 25 cents, we'll do something because they want your money no matter what the cost is to them, is that they want to market to you and everything. And I know this is totally off of a tangent, off of the Girl Scout camp murder type of situation. But believe it or not, your information is completely out there in the great wide open, even probably on the dark web. Oh my gosh. I don't know if I went to the dark web. I think I went somewhere. Maybe like the gray web. But there is actually a website. And I learned this from a teenager on YouTube who was doing this. Who was saying, how can you get free stuff from Amazon? And I have no idea how that came under my, suggested list because I wasn't even searching for that kind of stuff. But every once in a while, YouTube will just throw something out at you. Like, this is a suggested topic that you should, look at. And they'll just throw a random topic at you and everything. And this was one of those random topics that kept popping up, certain things. And I was like, okay. I was like, the second or third time, if it pops back up again, I'll watch it. And I watched it. And I was like, wow, this kid was in junior high school or what they call middle school now. And I'm like, whoa, how does this kid know how to do this? And he was showing you how to get free drinks from the vending machines and how to fool different machines to give you free items. And I was like, and then he had like another one, like how to get free stuff from Amazon. Well, what it is he's going to a specific website that literally posts. It'll say a first and last name of an actual person, the address, their credit card number, the, I guess the 3-digit code that's on the back of the credit card, and all this information. And so what happens is he goes in, he plugs in the credit card information, gets a gift card, an Amazon gift card, and then goes use the Amazon gift card to purchase things. So what he's doing is he's stealing someone's identity from this laundry list. And it's like literally like page after page after page, or internet page, of just people's information. And it'll show you how much money is on each person's credit card for them to decide on how much to get the, gift card for. So I saw this website. I went to the website once and everything, and I have not seen it since. But it was just so, I was just like looking page after page. I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, so you are scamming somebody to get something where you're not paying for it. And I'm like, how do they not trace back to this kid who's stolen the information? But what I was told, because at that time I'd gone through the grocery store, and they had those things called credit card skimmers. They still do. It's huge thing. And where it's basically because your card has a chip in it, they're able to, like in their pocket or in their purse, like literally go in a store and like collect every person's credit card information that they have the card out. That's why the RFID sleeves that protect you are so popular, because they can't read through that. So, and they also have skimmers at, the gas station. Well, I was going through line and I pulled out my credit card, and in that split second, someone in that area or in the parking lot, I mean, that's how advanced it is. You could be driving up and down the parking lot and getting all this information as people come in and out, or even inside the grocery store. It has like a little bit of a radius. And so as I pulled out my card to pay for it, they collected my information, went to a Walgreens, like literally down the street, bought gift cards they made a copy of my credit card, and then they bought gift cards with it. And so it looks like I went in that short minute of time to that Walgreens and bought like $500 worth of gift cards. And this person left with that, and I was like overdrawn on my bank account, because they started charging me all those fees, and I had to call and have my card canceled, and then they had to investigate it, and then 2 weeks later reimburse my account. But they never found the person, because they said this, and I quote, well, roughly quote, they said that the reason why they get away with it is because, even though you have all those cameras recording and everything like that, you don't know who is exactly doing it at the time. Even though your credit card registers at the register and you can see who's there, the police don't take the time to look at the footage, matchy, because it's going to match. If I put my credit card in the machine, it's going to say a date and timestamp and who's the cashier. You can look at the video and match that up and say, okay, it's probably this person, and do like facial recognition software. Well, they don't have the facial recognition software. They can just kind of post a picture, like, saying, okay, if you see this person, call this number, and nobody ever does. And so these people get away with it, and they go to the nearest convenience store or a place that you can buy gift cards, and they buy a variety of gift cards. They'll buy the Amazon, the Visa prepaid cards, all those things, and have all these cards available. And then they'll turn around and either sell those cards on eBay or other retail sites that pay you money for your gift cards, a certain amount, or they'll sell them on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace as, these bundles of credit, or bundles of gift cards. And then they'll just keep repeating, and they'll kind of go out, and they have like a territory that they do this area first, and then they do this area second, and they'll do that all day long. And they'll amass all this money in gift cards. And then they'll use that gift card to purchase groceries or gas or electronics off of Amazon, Best Buy or whatever. And then they'll take those electronics and they'll sell those electronics to the general public at a reduced amount. So if they spent $1,000 on an Apple, MacBook Pro, they'll sell that on eBay as a brand new unopened box MacBook Pro. Let's just say the MacBook Pro cost $1,000. They will put it on eBay, unopened, all this other stuff. Let's just say it goes for $900, and they lose that teeny amount of money. It doesn't matter because they probably bought like 10 MacBook Pros and they're going to make that money back easily, So let's just say they spent $3,000 on MacBook Pros and they sell each one of them for $900. They make their money back, but it doesn't matter if they lose that teeny amount of money because it wasn't their money in the first place. And then they make it up with other electronics and whatnot. They make money hand over freaking fist. It's ridiculous. And I talked to this officer about it. He's like, yeah, he goes, it's a real problem with these skimmers, because they just cannot, they don't have the manpower to keep up or the technology to keep up with it. And they have other cases that are more pressing, like drugs and human trafficking and everything like that. And so they just don't have the manpower to dedicate time and resources to finding out these teenagers. And it's literally, some of these people are literally teenagers, like high school kids who are doing this, or young adults, who are under 30 years old who are doing it because they're so technology based. And these skimmers are so cheap to buy. It's like literally there's like YouTube videos on how to either where to find them and what to do to create that type of quote unquote business. And those skimmers can be found on Amazon. Easy cheesy lemon squeezy. Like literally, they're like $30 for a skimmer. And the system to make the duplicate credit cards is like maybe $100. It's like for under $200 or under $500, you can have a replicating process from like scanning, skimming and making the cards, type of thing. They'll go to the airport and go through, buy a ticket to some destination that they plan on not going to. They'll sit in the airport all day long, skimming cards left and right, boom, 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 and putting it on a computer, boom, 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 and then they'll sell that information, and then they will use that information. And you're thinking like, I'm in the airport, I'm about to go to my destination. And as soon as you get to your destination, you're like, my credit card doesn't work, or it's maxed out. Are you kidding me? I have plenty of money on it. And then you have to cancel that card. You don't get your money. You have no money, or you have less money on your vacation. Your vacation is kind of interrupted because of these jerks. And then you have to deal with the whole drama of it. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So anyway, I've talked your ear off long enough, and we are done. So I will see you guys next week. Be safe out there. Bye-bye.